Welcome to Shakti Pulse, where we bring insights from industry experts for the benefit of startup founders. And today we're joined by Shakti Titan John Chen. John is a visionary leader in the tech industry, renowned for his strategic expertise and transformative leadership. With a career spanning decades, he has consistently driven innovation and growth within telecom and software. Most recently, as the CEO of Blackberry from 2013 to 2023, he revitalized the iconic brand, steering it towards success in cybersecurity and enterprise software solutions. And prior to that, John played a pivotal role as CEO of Sybase and led the company to become a leader in enterprise mobility and data management. Thank you, John, for joining us today.
Thank you, Liz.
So, John, as we heard in your background, you've become known for kind of the turnaround king. Tell us a little bit about your career progression and how this became your specialty.
Let's see. I went to Brown for my undergrads in electrical engineering and went to Caltech for get a master's degree in, again, electrical engineering. Started working as an engineer for a mainframe company called Unisys. And it's nice. I started as a design engineer and ended up at running the Unix program. At that time, by the way, the Unix was very, very kind of new and forthcoming. Names like USL, Unix System Lab and all that. Though most people don't know what that is today. Anyway, then I started thinking that I should get more into smaller company. Because I worked at a large company for a long time. I benefited from it. But I wanted to see whether I could be successful in a smaller company. And so I went to join Frmr Technology as the president, became the CEO later on, and sold it to Siemens. And that was a turnaround. Now, the reason why that was a turnaround was because, I need to get a chance. Most people in Silicon Valley, they looked at me and they said, well, this is a big company guy. Could he really do his own slides, and does he know how to Xerox? So I wanted to prove that I could be a very hands-on person, and I wanted to prove it to myself, most importantly, and I did, and that was fun. It has its own challenges, but it was fun. Then we sold the company to Siemens, and part of the deal was that I had to stay for a couple of years, and they moved me to Germany, and they gave me a lot more responsibility, and so forth and so forth. That was also a great experience. And I came back to the United States and Silicon Valley because my family wanted to live in California or continue to. So I did that. And then I got recruited by Sybase. And at the time, Sybase was a trouble company, competing with the giants like Oracle and the Microsoft and the IBM on database. And so I have to find a path for the company. And it was a very well-known company. At one point in time, Sybase was bigger than Oracle, if you could believe that, at that one point in time. But then, of course, it started losing in the application wave in the year 2K and all that really industry-changing times. But we found our path. We found the mobility as earlier than anybody else. I remember a lot of very interesting exchange, I would say, with analysts. With shareholders. I mean, I remember checking in an airport, and the shareholders call and start yelling at me, and about that was not fun, of course, but we persisted and we did well. We turned a company from a market cap of 300 million to selling to SAP for 6.5 billion. Took 11 years, but it was a fun ride because it was ups and downs, but it was really a team building opportunity. So we did that, and I joined Silver Lake and as an advisor after I left SAP. They joined Silver Lake as an advisor, and I got really lucky because that was the year where Silver Lake was helping Michael Dell to take Dell private. So it was so much fun, flying around it, doing due diligence, and it was a lot of fun. Otherwise, it'll be reasonably slower pace compared to running a company, for example. And then I joined BlackBerry, kind of being talked into doing something more suicidal. And I know from day one, we can't just produce hardware. And there's not, by the way, for most people don't understand when I say that, they think, oh, because you got beaten. That was not the point. The point was, even if you could get yourself back into the market share that you lost, is there enough money there? And that was the point. And so I said, no, there will be a better solution if you focus on IoT and you focus on cybersecurity, and hoping that the two converge. Then BlackBerry will have a strategic role and strategic benefit or advantages. Anyway, so that brings me to today, and I after 10 years. The company's on its way to continue to execute that, hopefully. And so I have retired in November of last year. So now I'm unemployed.
Well, John, congratulations on such an incredible career, and we are so happy to benefit from your wisdom. But one thing you mentioned was your experience at both large companies and small companies. And as you know, our founders are very early stage, just starting out with their products. If you were advising a young tech founder on their journey from 0 to 10, 10 to 100, 100 plus, what type of advice would you give them for being a great CEO at each stage?
I think one thing I find universally true, not in the company that I interact with, but also the company that a lot of my CEO friends who runs very big and small company and successful. I think it's really important to understand how you manage talent, because it's all about people. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really about the extra mile. When I do turnarounds, the people who are really committed, that really look at it as fun. And that's very important. You can't look at it as a job. You have to look at it as being fun. And of course, you can't have fun every minute of your day. But you take the good, you take the bad, you encounter bumps on the road. But the most important thing is you be able to build a team around you where you all trust each other. And that's not easy. I mean, it's easy to say that, and you find people move around quite a bit in the industry, but the real successful team are the one that actually hang in together for much longer. That doesn't mean forever, but at least enough time to achieve a certain important milestone. So that's really, I think, if I were doing a startup, I want to make sure that I surround myself with the people that think alike. I even will trade in experience with commitment. And because that's when everybody has had each other's back, and that's where success comes. And one kind of a related data point, you see a lot of big company, whether it's Oracle or Google and stuff, but the time when they were doing really well was actually ran by the founder, because they care. They were able to build a team that they could inspire, and this is why Warren Buffett is still doing what Warren Buffett is doing. I mean, it really is very much part of you, right? And so if you could make other people feel that way, that support you, then you got it made.
Yeah, that's great advice throughout the entire founder journey. And John, you've seen companies like BlackBerry, where there's been this new tech shift, as we're seeing, similarly with AI right now, and how the founders react to it. Is there a framework for how a founder should react to or move forward in an environment where there is technological change?
Yeah. So being around for so long, I found the following. I mean, there's always a excitement and a hype around new technology and capability. And that's nothing wrong. And this is where it makes everything so much fun and interesting. And it's also make sure that you can stay as a great company if you don't innovate or you don't embrace new technology. However, for the startup environment, smaller company environment, you don't have all the resources to deal with to compete with the Microsoft and the IBM of the world or the Google of the world. So you need to be very selective, you need to be very focused. So the number one thing I always found interesting is not the hype of the AI, is where the money is making, how you generate the revenue and how you generate the values for the customer. You can't just say, well, I use AI. I was watching a commercial. I mean, insurance company claim they use AI. Service company thing, they said they use AI, but is that really where the money is? Will people pay more for it? It is true that if you don't do it, you one of these days find yourself being very behind, and try to catch up. And I have some experience of that. Unfortunately, running some of the companies that kind of misses a wave. So it's important that you cap the wave in a technological point of view, but you also don't want to confuse yourself that somehow if you apply AI, it will help your business. And so you got to have a really true understanding of the business case. How does AI generate more sales for you? And sometimes the hype in the market that's disconnected. So a data point on Nvidia is now the darling of the industry and the capital market. But they have a reason why. I mean, it's very easy to explain why they will benefit from AI because everybody wants computing capacity and they provide the chips for it and the board for it. So, but the same company that does AI for a very long time couldn't get the same valuation. It's because, at the end of the day is where is the money? How do you deliver it to the customer and keep them? And if you can't answer those questions, use AI as a technology, but don't think this is a business case.
Yeah, that's great advice because as you've seen, companies feel a pressure to call themselves, the AI of this or that just to get attention. And John, you've written recently about the current AI cycle, drawing parallels to Internet of Things and where potentially that went wrong in terms of thinking about security. What other cycles does AI remind you of? The smartphone cycle comes to mind. And do you think that AI will live up to the hype that you've seen other technology cycles have?
Oh, another cycle was, I remember the .com days. Everybody had a E something in the name, and a dot something in the name, and so they confused themselves. Some of my friends who were in companies that no longer exist because they somehow think that if they put an E in front of their name and the market will recognize the importance of it. So that reminds me a lot of that. Again, we got excited about technology. So I have to take a step back about AI. AI has been around probably before I was born. And definitely in the 50s, in the 60s, and the 70s. And when I was at university, we were writing code, linguistic code, under using a programming language called Lisp. And it's trying to teach the computer to build a more knowledgeable database as the computer started answering questions and experiencing. And I did a similar project when I was at Caltech. We look at something called a readily extendable language, and which is the computer, after you ask them enough questions, becomes smarter as it goes along, and could predict what you are really asking. So AI been around a long time. Then why is it now with such a big excitement around it? Well, because between mobility, capacity, cloud, kind of all the factor that needs to make AI user friendly and usable and affordable, it seems to be here. So that reminds me of how the internet becomes a day-to-day thing. I know the early days of Netscape, and doing a browser. And a lot of people try to do browser, but they can't figure out what to do, how to make money out of it. So that was important. So AI is important, as I said, as a technology, and it reminds me of a lot of different cycle of technology. At the end of the day, is really make it affordable, make it usable to the customer who will pay you for it. And that, I hate to just keep saying that, but from a business case perspective, I do some investment on my own. When I listen to the pitch, I really were listening to how does the customer, why would a customer pay you for this? And will continue to do so. Where is the stickiness of that? And if you have to be able to answer that questions, and then you now marry the technology to the business case. AI, as I said, and I wrote this little blog last week, I think. Um, the thing that bothers me with AI from a business perspective is I think privacy, and I use the word trust, which is security, privacy, security, and protections, and the whole idea of fake news or deep fake, all that kind of collide together. Now, if the industry doesn't get a handle on this, and I don't know what that means, if the industry doesn't get a handle on this, I think we will automatically invite the regulators, which will unfortunately not only kill or slow down the market, but also unintendedly pick the winners. And which we in technology always would like the government to be hands off. But I think we now have a work to do as a total industry, which is how do we avoid the deep fake? How do we avoid the intrusion to the privacy? How do you trust the source of the data? All that. And then if you get a good handle on the disclosure on it, then at least the government will back away, or try to back away.
Right. We need to get those right to make it work or be more widely adopted. And so, John, I mean, you advise a lot of startup founders. If there's a founder who things are going well with their current product, and all of a sudden there's this new trend, whether it's AI or something like that, how do you balance, as a cash constrained startup, how do you balance keeping focus on your existing product versus maybe putting resources toward exploring this new area so that you don't fall behind? And how do you make that kind of like strategic decision of whether you should stay the course or try to innovate, but you don't want to get too influenced by what the market is saying?
Yeah. Great question. That's, of course, is different for different situations, but in general, I'll answer the question. In general, you stay the course, innovate that, because remember, the most important thing is, why does the customer continue to pay you? And with your background of looking at so many companies, you know that it's particularly the enterprise large company. Once they adopted a technology and it works and has good surface behind it, they tend not to just move on to the next great thing. I mean, because like in banking, they're trying to use IT as an advantage to do their job in banking, in finance. They're not interested in just chasing the next interesting IT gadget. So if you give them an excuse to get rid of you because your product isn't working or your generations behind, not just one generation behind, but generations behind, then of course the business will suffer. So in order to avoid that, stay the course, take care of your customers will be my number one priority and where I spend the money. You do have to have some portion, and hopefully I use 80-20, maybe 20% of your resources that you look at and incorporate a new technology and ideas so that you don't fall behind too much. But there's no substitute with keeping the customer happy.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's all about the customer at the end of the day. And John, shifting gears a little bit, wanted to talk about board building and board management. You've sat on several boards, public company, private company, probably seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. What advice do you have to founders who are just starting to build their boards in terms of what kind of board members to look for, how to manage your board properly, and any specific stories that you have?
A good board member needs to understand the difference between advisory and management. So if I'm a startup CEO, I want to find the person who are obviously logical, competent, have enough experience in the area that you could help define. You need in proxy filing, you have to define exactly what is this particular board member brings to the benefit to the company. So you need to get that clear pictures of, okay, I need somebody who understands the market, or I need somebody who understands technology. I need somebody, whatever, of this certain area of technology. But it's very important. I see a lot of board members that confuse themselves being a manager. And if I'm a startup person, I just can't afford that. And secondly, somebody who will speak up respectfully. And there are also board members who just kind of stay quiet and support the CEO, but to the point of a fault. Because the CEO needs to be reminded. It's not needs to be managed. It needs to be reminded.
And John, we at Shakti, we're honored that you're a Shakti Titan helping to mentor the next generation of CEOs. What excites you about mentoring founders?
I haven't really, this is new for me. I'm usually on boards that are really big and the companies are very big. But the one good thing about startups is the speed of things being done. And less of I don't want to use the word bureaucracy as a very negative, but large company has a certain set way of doing things, and they react when they react and how they react. That usually brings certain level of consistency, a certain level of governance. So nothing wrong with that. But I'm at the stage of my life that I would like very much to understand, how the speed thing moved, and I will benefit from having that experience myself. So so this is why I like the startup. The other thing about the startup is the business plan is always very challenging. In two dimensions, it challenges the status quo. It has to, otherwise you have no value add. But it's also challenged one of the points that you made earlier, which is how do you distribute and assign and what to do, what to do first, what to do next, what to not do. And because a large company, they could do everything at the same time. That doesn't mean it's efficient. It just means they do everything at the same time. So that's something that I'm looking forward to learning more and helping to advise, the thought process around how to address it.
Wonderful. Well, our startup founders are very fortunate to benefit from your decades of wisdom. So thank you, John, and thank you for joining this episode of Shakti Pulse.
Thank you. I appreciate it.